Good morning, everyone. I'm really excited to share with you this morning some ideas and data, and it's great to know you all are here and ready to hear about taxation as the way to begin your week. And though I'm glad that I'm not the only thing standing between you and your breakfast, it's good to realize that even if I were, you'd be like, no, go ahead and talk to us about tax policy and data for another hour a week later. I'll get to tax policy, but I want to start by talking about nice things. And by nice things, sadly, I don't mean flying cars. What I do mean are the sorts of things the public policy expert Heather McGee, author of The Sum of Us, writes and talks about, which characterizes here as basic aspects of a high-functioning society. Adequately funded schools, reliable infrastructure, living wages, a strong public health system, tuition-free community college, universal elder care and child care, paid family leave. I would add to this list such things as affordable housing and a vibrant, well-funded public transit system. In a few minutes, I'll turn to why we don't have these nice things and how we could have them. But first, I want to review how OBBBA HR1 is further reducing our access to nice things and putting Rhode Islanders and Rhode Island communities in jeopardy. Some call the enacted federal legislation the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, or OBBBA. Some people call it other things. In part, this is just easier to say. I'm going to refer to it as HR1, which stands for House Resolution 1. And HR1 does not want us to have nice things. We can see this in the cuts to social services and health care supports and in increased funding for immigration, enforcement, deportation, and detention. Here in the next couple of slides, I'm going to share the impacts of HR1. Tens of thousands of Rhode Islanders will lose Medicaid or other health care coverage, and even those who maintain coverage might wind up paying drastically more for the same coverage. Many who lose coverage lose it not because they're ineligible, but because while they do have jobs, they cannot manage to complete the new paperwork about reporting requirements. Others will be unable to find jobs in this market. Immigrants with various statuses, including some with legal status, were particularly hard hit by healthcare coverage restrictions and other restrictions and cuts. Thousands of Rhode Islanders will lose SNAP food assistance, and others will face new reporting requirements and possible reduction in benefits. Going forward, HR1 prohibits adjusting SNAP benefits to increases in the actual costs of food. Those families most in need of the child tax credit, those with the lowest income, will be ineligible for the credit's increase because they make too little money. I also want to note that many of the seeming tax benefits for low-income people will not actually help them. Many low-income seniors already do not pay much income taxes and will not benefit from the $6,000 senior deduction. Same with lower-income tip workers who do not owe much income tax already. In large part, HR1 makes all these service cuts and directs all these obstacles in order to pay for tax cuts for those who have the highest income and most resources already. Tax justice is in part about the government raising enough revenue and in a fair way to help pay for what government does to help people who cannot meet their most basic needs, and to provide people with foundations and the tools to thrive. HR1 does the opposite. HR1 will decrease tax justice in this sense by making the tax code even more upside down, arranging for those with the most to pay even less, as this chart shows. This chart makes this upside downness clear. The lowest income group pays a higher portion of their income in total state and local taxes compared with all other income groups. They have the least ability to pay, yet pay the highest percentage. By contrast, the top 1% pay the lowest percentage. Tax justice suggests that at the least, this ought to be evened out. Furthermore, an economic system based on equity and tax justice in regard to race and ethnicity will look noticeably different, as this chart makes clear. One would expect each column, for each group, for each income level, to reach the purple line. That is, if the economic system functioned equitably without regard to race or ethnicity, We would expect that 20% of Black Rhode Islanders would be in the top 20% of income, and 20% would be in the lowest 20%. Instead, Black and Latino Rhode Islanders are overrepresented in the lowest 60% of income and underrepresented in the highest 40%. Now, this example is meant to show that instead of a tax justice system based on ability to pay, we have a system in which someone with extreme wealth can manage to claim a $4,000 child tax credit based on lower modest income in the form of salary or wages. I share this not to criticize Jeff Bezos personally, but rather to ask about the tax system that allows a billionaire to claim a child tax credit unavailable to someone with income of, say, $200,000. We should be asking billionaires to pay fairly into a system that helps support pay fairly tax and help support their ability to prosper, and they should want to support such a system. That's tax justice.
Yeah.
Our tax code allows some very profitable companies, while benefiting from lots of public resources such as roads and stable contract and port systems, to pay little, even no federalistic taxes on the actual business they are doing and sales they are making in Rhode Island and elsewhere. For example, in 2020, the pharmaceutical company AbbVie reported that about 75% of its worldwide sales were to customers in the U.S. Yet for tax purposes, only 1% of its income was reported to the U.S. While this is not specifically a Rhode Island example, the fact is that many multinational corporations, once not headquartered in Rhode Island, are selling goods to Rhode Islanders and shifting profits overseas, avoiding paying state and federal taxes on their profits and sales here. Our local small businesses cannot do this, putting them at a competitive disadvantage. We ought to capture the appropriate business tax revenue on these sales and profits achieved in Rhode Island. This also is tax justice. I next want to identify two problems with the HR1 model of cutting services to pay for tax cuts for the low. I mean problems beyond the suffering likely to result from the service cuts. The first problem is that trickle-down economics does not work. The notion that we can cut taxes to improve our business competitiveness and work companies and wealthy individuals make tens of thousands of jobs is an old and discredited myth. They tried this in Kansas a little over a decade ago. And you can see the results here, with Kansas on the left and the darker blue in both charts. In the wake of drastic tax cuts, Kansas did worse on economic and job growth compared to its neighbors and the nation as a whole. In 2017, Kansas lawmakers had to reverse the cuts. This is trickle-down economics, and I admit to you, I'm old enough to remember when this myth was first promoted in the 1980s. While individual wealthy investors do play a role, economic activity and growth are primarily a result of the actions of workers and genuinely small and micro business owners, and public investment in such things as basic research, a strong public transit system, excellent schools, and vibrant neighborhoods. The initiative and imagination of the state's 100,000 or so small and micro business owners is critical and amazing, something we should support. But these entrepreneurs thrive most when public and private investments together help create the groundwork that allows growth, not some vague hope that if we give more to those with the most, they will bless us with jobs and new companies. The second problem with the HR1 approach brings us back to Heather McGee. She argues here that prosperity is not a zero-sum game, in which for some people to do better, others must do worse. We should get out of the austerity mindset and adopt an abundance mindset. And McGee shows us that when we want to do this, we can. That we have before, with the boom of the 1930s and 1970s. Define a period for the American dream, a period of higher marginal tax rates, massive public investment. Let's substitute smart regulation in place of simply more regulation, high levels of unionization, a minimum wage that was roughly half the median wage, and lots of benefits with work. I must note, as McGee reminds us, that these decades of investment were largely focused on the white middle class. And when people sought to expand this vision beyond this, the reaction among many white people, including those in power, was that it was a zero-sum game. and that expanding prosperity meant whites losing, rather than in truth what would have happened, everyone gaining. And so they shut down the abundance and investment approach, and even did nutty things like closing public pools, because they thought it better to lose those public goods than to have to share them. So the question is how we, here in Rhode Island, can return to investment and prosperity for all Rhode Islanders. And the answer is not to pretend the government should or can do it all, but rather that with adequate revenue, the government can play a crucial supporting role, so that Rhode Islanders can at least meet their basic needs, and that there's a foundation, there are tools making it possible for many more of us to thrive and prosper. Now here are two images, two very different models of taxation. The one on the left, folks waiting online at the grocery store, is a model of taxation as transactional, where I ought to pay only for the specific services I need and will receive. But it's a mistake to think of taxation this way. Public goods are indivisible. You can't divide roads and say, this stretch belongs to you, and that stretch belongs to me. You can't say that this courtroom or section of contract law belongs to you, and this to me. Yes, folks with a lot of resources can purchase access to country clubs and other luxurious private spaces. But few of us would want to live in a Rhode Island where large sections of our population cannot access the beaches because there were no public beaches, or because they were prohibitively expensive. And imagine if we applied this model to fire departments and emergency rescue units so that they responded to calls based on ability to pay and not respond to all those who can't pay. Well, the same idea also applies to other nice things, such as healthcare and childcare, food assistance and paid leave, public health and public transit. We need to work together to support such programs. Indeed, public goods and services such as SNAP and Medicaid and Rhode Island Works Cash Assistance go precisely to the people who need them because they don't have the income or wealth to pay for them. Now, the image on the right is a model of how we pay together for public spaces like parks and playgrounds. Resources we can all use and that we cannot divide up by ability to pay for them. We call this the social contract. We typically think of taxation and the state budget as a limited pot of funds that is already too large and ought to be ever and ever smaller. And that this limited pot has to be divvied up to give funds to different competing interest groups, so most of us wind up a little bit happy and at least a little bit sad. And too often the state budget process involves various groups competing with each other for scraps. We should come to realize that large state budgets are not, by definition, bad. Not when we raise revenue fairly and spend it wisely. Perhaps from the start, we ought to think of the state budget and how we raise revenue for it in terms of a social contract, where we figure out what we need to do to cover Rhode Islanders' most basic needs, and to invest in a community that allows entrepreneurs and workers and children and all of us to prosper. With a social contract based in tax justice, we must all be in it together, we the people. If we all do our part, we all benefit, and we will have nice things. We want all of us to be part of this community that's called Rhode Island. Rhode Islanders from so many different national and ethnic groups, Rhode Islanders of varied racial and religious backgrounds, Rhode Islanders of different citizenship statuses, Rhode Islanders across the income spectrum, from the poorest to those with the highest income and wealth. Speaking of the wealthiest Rhode Islanders, including out-of-state residents, such as the owner of this Watch Hill property, possible location for a big wedding next year, I hear. Some might ask if Taylor Swift is getting her money's worth for the amount she pays in property taxes, whether the local taxes or the new state property tax on expensive homes that are not primary residences. Should she really pay that much for good roads and public safety? Well, I think we've answered this question. You might not have realized it before, but all of us here who are Rhode Islanders are connected to Taylor Swift with a social contract. We're partners with her, and she's a partner with us. And we all contribute in various ways, and we all benefit in various ways. And I must note that the revenue from the new statewide property tax included this year in the enacted budget thanks to Speaker Shikarchi in the General Assembly. And this new statewide property tax is targeted to address affordable housing by funding the low-income housing tax credit fund. And so it shows clearly how the taxes we pay are not simply a transactional exchange of money for services. We live in a society that provides conditions and stability for some people to use their hard work, or talents, or sometimes their inheritances, or connections, or good fortune to naturally accumulate enough money to purchase second or third homes, sometimes mansions, while others, even many middle-class people, get priced out of housing markets and affordable housing, whether purchased or rented. The social contract and tax justice policy ask that we all help make it so that no one should go homeless, and so that more of us have an opportunity, after all of our hard work and good fortune, to rent or purchase housing we can afford. The way we respond to the threats to our communities from H.R. 1's federal cuts, including how we respond with next year's state budget, provides us with an opportunity to embark on the road forward to tax justice, the opportunity to make sure we have nice things. With a combination of good tax policy, the raising of enough revenue, and wise investment in people and programs, we, the people of Rhode Island, can travel together on the road to tax justice, and together build a prosperous Rhode Island. We can travel together on affordable and public RIPTA buses. And electric ones that help protect our environment. And we'll be able to take these buses to visit excellent child care centers. And excellent senior care centers. And while on the bus, we'll pass by recently constructed affordable housing units like pictured here. And out of the windows of the bus, we will see children being welcomed to their high-performing schools. You can take that bus to state parks for recreation and festivals. And we can visit some of the state's growing number of worker collaboratives, championed by Reza Laboral, pictured here. This road forward we take to tax justice and shared prosperity will probably not, I realize, bring us flying cars anytime soon, but it will bring many, many nice things. Let's go. Thank you.